This video was brought to you by my loyal patrons. Pledge today and receive exclusive perks. Link in the description.
Hello, Puff Thomas.
Hello.
The new engine, Puff back. I'm Mighty. And I'm Mac.
And together we're Mighty Mac.
Mighty Mac is a narrow gauge engine, and was first introduced in Season 9. Mighty Mac was brought to the Skarloey Railway to help out with the heavy holidaymaker traffic in the summer. They're strong, they're powerful, and they also have two faces. Welcome back to Sidetracked, everyone, the series where I take a deep dive look at Sodor's forgotten faces. Today's episode features a very underused character that has always fascinated me. Mighty Mac is two engines in one, a double Fairlie locomotive, and a rather strange sight on the Skarloey Railway. Mighty is the more adult of the two, with a deeper voice and a headstrong personality, while Mac is a bit more lax and soft-spoken. When they pull together, they are the strongest engine of the fleet. That is, when they pull together, because these two, always being stuck together, get sick of each other pretty often, and they don't always see eye to eye. I've always been pretty fascinated with these two, and I always felt that it was a shame that such a unique character was woefully underused in the TV series, only appearing for a couple seasons before disappearing into the void. So let's dive in and discuss the history of this two-faced creature. In their first episode, aptly titled Mighty Mac, the two are put on their first job, taking campers up into the mountains. However, the two can't agree on anything. Mighty wants to go one way, and Mac wants to go the other.
This way, he puffed. No, go the other way, shouted Mac. And whenever they came across a junction, Mighty would push one way, then Mac would pull the other.
Their constant bickering gets them lost, and leads them to a dead end.
This is your fault, puffed Mighty, and he pushed back towards Mac. Yours, puffed Mac.
Neither willing to take responsibility, they blame each other and end up just making things worse.
Soon, lots of rocks came tumbling down.
The whole train is now stuck. Time passes, and hold on a second. How did the coach get over there? It was next to the rock slide before. Are they implying that the campers carried the entire coach around the engine to re-rail it? Okay, I know the real reason why they did this is so Mighty Mac could push the rocks out of the way without the coach in front of them. But still, it's a glaring cut. After watching the campers work together to re-rail the coach, Mighty and Mac realize they need to work together too. And so they do. Puffing together, they manage to clear the rocks off the tracks and open up their path out of there. It's a fairly straightforward episode with a very obvious moral, but I like it. It's pretty funny for a hit-era episode.
We're here, puffed Mac. Then why are the holidaymakers over there? Asked Mighty.
And I like that the episode is actually about the new character. It's not a Thomas-focused episode where he meets a new face. No, it's actually totally focused on the new face. Or faces, I guess. You know what I mean. A solid introduction to these two. So what was next for them? The answer is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Zilch. How quickly they just forgot Mighty Mac existed. They don't speak again in Season 9, only popping up for occasional background cameos. They aren't even featured in group shots where everyone is together. Considering that they're the first new Skarloey Railway engine in a long time at this point, it's odd that we never get to see how they interact with the other Skarloey Railway engines. They speak once in Season 10. They pass Duncan and warn him to slow down.
The bell will come loose, puffed Mighty Mac.
And they help Sir Handel home when he breaks down, but they don't say anything. Wow, making great use of your super unique two-faced character, aren't you? In Season 11, they, again, just pop up and do nothing of note. They take orders from Sir Handel, and they're present when Freddy finds a bell for Mr. Percival's bike. I'm not really sure who's at fault for this one. I guess it'd be whoever staged the props here, but they seem to completely forget Mighty Mac has a face at each end. There's a scene here where Freddy is hiding from everyone, and yet they clearly show that Mac can see him in the distance. He's right there. He's looking right at him. Their final appearance is in Season 12's Mountain Marvel, where they appear with CGI faces. And again, they don't do anything. They're present after Peter Sam crashes, and they help him afterwards. And that's it. That's all Mighty Mac does in the show. They did not survive the switch to full CGI. The narrow gauge engines made their grand return in Blue Mountain Mystery, but Mighty Mac was not with them. They and Freddy had fallen into the void, never to be seen again. I can't help but feel a little frustrated and disappointed by this. I always liked Mighty Mac as a concept. Here you have this super unique 2 engines in 1 character that constantly argues with itself. It's quite original and totally different for Thomas, especially in this middle era where most of the episode scripts were very safe and samey. I can only imagine the potential of such a thing. And instantly they turn him into an NPC after their first episode. That is purely the fault of the writers, not even attempting to give them stronger characterization or dabbling in any potential dynamics with the other characters. Granted, I know that during this era, the entire point of new characters was just to sell toys. All they had to do was appear once to serve their purpose, and then they didn't have to appear again. But I can't help but feel that they squandered such a fun idea. Half the time it was so easy to forget that they even existed. And I reckon that's why they were ultimately phased out of the show, and why they did not survive the CGI switch. And what a shame too, because I feel like a funny character like Mighty Mac would fit right in the CGI series, especially during the Renaissance seasons when they introduced so many gimmicky, weird-looking characters. Behind the scenes, Mighty Mac's prop was recently a part of the 2025 Prop Store auction, and was won by the Japanese hobby store Medical Art, a mover of imported model trains in Japan. They're currently on display there in the store, along with a Rocky duplicate and a couple other props that they also won. Now, as peculiar as they are, Mighty Mac was not the first time 2-faced engines appeared in the series. In the books, all the engines with 2 cabs, a la Daisy, Boko, and sometimes even Toby, are all depicted with a face on each end of them, so they can see whichever way that they're going. There's also the Cody Fell mountain engines, who all have a conventional face on their fronts, and a rear face on the back of their cabs. While these have never really been explained as far as I know, I assume that the logic here was so they could see where they were going when reversing down the mountain. It's pretty dang weird though. I have always wondered how this works. Is the rear face mute? Can it also talk like the front face? Can the front and the rear faces talk at the same time? Or to each other? Unlike these examples, Mighty Mac having 2 faces makes much more sense in universe, for they are not one character with 2 faces. They are 2 different characters in one, 2 engines stuck together at their cab. Mighty is one engine, and Mac is the other. They are what's called a double Fairlie locomotive. The double Fairlie locomotive was invented by Scottish engine designer Robert Francis Fairlie in 1864, hence the name Fairlie. The idea was simple: increase an engine's strength by having what is basically 2 stuck together, each with their own individual powered bogie. Several different variants of double Fairlie engines existed, but the most known ones are the examples built for the Festiniog Railway in Wales, which was essentially the testing grounds for these locos. The first one, Little Wonder, was built by George England and Company, the same company that built the England types already on the Festiniog, aka Duke's Class. The second one, James Spooner, was built by Avonside, and the later ones were built at the railway's own Boston Lodge Works. These double-ended engines had their issues, but overall proved successful on the Festiniog. Their double engine power gave them the strength to haul long trains up the mountain with ease, and their articulated bogies allowed them to traverse the line's tight curves. While double Fairlies did not really catch on around the world, they managed to live on at the Festiniog. 2 of the original ones survive: Livingston Thompson, which is on display at the National Railway Museum in York, and Murden Emrys, I hope I said that right, which is still in steam on the Festiniog today. along with a couple new builds. More on them later. Mighty Mac was not the first double Fairlie character considered for the series. The first double Fairlie character came about in 2001 during the production of Season 6, in the form of Little Giant. Little Giant, whose name was pulled from another engine on the Festiniog Railway, was created by the show's concept artist, Robert Gauld Galliers, and wore this bright yellow livery. The idea, at least the way I understand it, was that the engine was basically one character with two opposite personalities. One half of him was always happy and confident, and the other end, sad and pessimistic.
The president's dog just had puppies! There was a plane crash.
Yeah, pretty much like that. The character was dropped before writing for the season began, because, as Galliers stated in an interview, they felt some viewers may have found a single character with two faces disturbing. Yeah, I can understand that. The concept of a double Fairlie character was not forgotten, however. A couple seasons later, writer Paul Larson came up with one himself and put his own spin on it. As he talked about recently on the 80th anniversary podcast, his double Fairlie was called Ron Ron.
We decided it was going to be called Ron Ron, and each side was going to be called Ron. And we had all this dialogue where one end would say, "Hey Ron, do you think we should go here?" And the other would go, "Yes Ron, yes, let's go there. Shall we pull this one, Ron? No, let's push this one, Ron." And so they'd have all this conversation where they'd be calling each other Ron and Ron the whole time.
Unlike Little Giant, Ron Ron was two separate characters in one. However, both were named Ron and referred to each other as such. It was a tongue-in-cheek reference to the British comedy sketch show The Two Ronnies, where two actors named Ron played off each other.
4 candles.
4 candles. Here you are. 4 candles.
No, 4 candles.
Well, there you are, 4 candles.
No, 4 candles. Handles for forks.
Ron Ron was a much funnier character than what he eventually became. Paul wrote the episode script, and it got pretty far along in production, until one day one of the higher-ups at Hit Entertainment alerted him that they made some changes. The character, unbeknownst to him, was renamed Mighty Mac. Mighty was one end, and Mac the other.
For whatever reason, after the script was finished, they changed his name to Mighty Mac. And I remember Simon saying, "Oh, by the way, his name changed to Mighty Mac." And I said, "Well, did all that dialogue still work with the Ron and the Ron thing?" He goes, "Not really."
And the rest is history. Paul's Ron Ron script became the episode Mighty Mac in Season 9. Now, Mighty Mac is painted in a dark blue with ornate red, yellow, and black lining. Mac's face has rounded edges and has freckles, while Mighty's face is more angular and has hair? Like what? Excuse me? How? As if this character having two faces wasn't weird enough. One end has hair. Ugh, it looks more like a tumor than it does hair. Why is it painted the same color as their skin? Why not have it be picked out like this? Oh. I'm not actually sure if that's better or not. Unlike Timothy before, I don't really take any issues with Mighty Mac's design, weird forehead tumor aside. I think for what the character of Mighty Mac is supposed to be, the double Fairlie is a perfect choice. There's nothing really else out there that could alternatively work for them. The show never really gave an explanation for Mighty Mac's existence, other than them being a new engine to take people up into the mountains. So, let's have a little fun and craft a headcanon for them. Just how would I work Mighty Mac into the universe of the Railway series? The Skarloey Railway's real-life counterpart, the Tallyclin Railway, is just over 7 miles long. You may think that sounds quite small, but really it's a pretty decent length for a narrow-gauge railway. So much so that the engines all take on water at the line's roughly 2/3 point, Dalgach, about 4.5 miles up the line. These little narrow-gauge engines can't store much fuel, after all. Now, how long is the Skarloey Railway in the book's canon? Try double that. It's all estimation based on the official maps, but it seems to me that the Skarloey is about 13-ish miles, which means it'd need multiple water stops to fuel the engines on their journeys. In 1965, the railway became even longer with the addition of its loop line around Skarloey Lake, adding an additional mile or two. I'll come back to this in a moment. Circa 1972, the Festiniog Railway's Boston Lodge Works was working on a new build double Fairlie engine, using parts from the withdrawn Livingston-Thompson, which was planned to go on static display at the National Railway Museum. In 1979, the new locomotive, Earl of Merioneth, finally emerged from the works. It gained the nickname the Square for pretty obvious reasons. Its non-traditional cube-like design was rather controversial among rail fans. So much so that modifications were made over time to soften its appearance, including giving it larger smoke boxes and various parts that matched the other double Fairlies. A second new build emerged in 1992, David Lloyd George, which returned to the more beloved traditional double Fairlie design. I did a lot of research on these locos to get an idea of how to work Mighty Mac into the universe, and this is what I've come up with. Here's my headcanon for Mighty Mac. Come the 1980s, the Skarloey Railway Company began dabbling in new ways to attract more tourism to their railway. One of these endeavors included building the funicular railway at Skarloey Station, so people could easily access the hotels below on the lakefront. With an expected boost in tourism, they saw the need for a more powerful engine that could haul the heavier trains up the steep gradients during the peak summer months. Taking note of the new build double Fairlie at the Festiniog, they requested one of their own, and Boston Lodge complied. After the rather sour reception of the Square's look, Boston Lodge decided to return to the traditional design for this next loco. After a few years of fundraising, they turned out the new build engine, gauged specifically for the Skarloey Railway's 2'3" system. The outlines for it would go on to be repurposed for the later new build double Fairlie, David Lloyd George, in 1992. Consider that Mighty Mac's real-life twin, if you will. The new engine needed a name, and after putting it to a vote on the railway board, they decided to name it after the Skarloey's first ever controller, Mr. Mac, nicknamed the Mighty Mac by former staff for his tall demeanor and headstrong personality. The name was agreed on, and the new double Fairlie became Mighty Mac. One end was known as Mighty, and the other Mac. Mighty Mac arrived on Sodor in the summer of 1985, just in time for the start of an expectedly heavy tourism season, and right before the opening of the new funicular railway at Skarloey Lake in September. Mighty Mac sees the most use during the peak summer seasons, running around the loop and back. A double-ended engine proved to be an unusual but popular attraction. Having an engine at each end also proved useful in making run rounds at Crovan's Gate more efficient. They never have to be spun on the turntable behind the shed to face a certain way. Mighty and Mac take turns heading their trains alternatively. In the winter months, Mighty Mac does not see much use, as the other engines prove sufficient for the calmer traffic, and so they are usually stored away in the shed out of sight, where they hibernate for the winter. Now I think all of this aligns pretty dang perfectly, except for one thing. Ivo Hue. More specifically, Ivo Hue's number. Ivo Hue emerged in 1996, and is the railway's 7th engine. So how can he be number 7 if Mighty Mac arrived 11 years before him in this take? Shouldn't Mighty Mac be number 7 then? Well, no, because Mighty Mac is number 10, actually. Wait, what? Okay, this is a little confusing, but it makes sense, I promise. The Island of Sodor book states that Duke is officially the railway's number 8, despite arriving on the railway in 1969 after being rediscovered. That was nearly 30 years before Ivo Hue was a thing, and Ivo Hue isn't even mentioned once in this book. So, what's the deal here? We'll take a note from Ivo Hue's real-life counterpart, Tom Rolt, for this one. The engine that became Tom Rolt was purchased for the Talyllyn all the way back in the 60s, and was always intended to be the line's number 7. However, the project lost steam in the 70s, and Tom Rolt didn't come to be until 1991. Let's go ahead and assume something similar occurred with Ivo Hue, a new build engine project that started in the 60s, and was designated the number 7 then. Duke was unexpectedly rediscovered in 1969, and so they gave him the number 8. And then you have Fred, who, again, has a similar story to Ivo Hue. Made out of 2 other diesels purchased at an unknown date in the 80s, he was designated the number 9, though he wouldn't move under his own power until 1989. And lastly, Mighty Mac came along in 1985, ready to work, and was given the next available number, 10. It's all a bit out of order, but it all makes enough sense, right? And it doesn't alter a single known detail of the Railway series canon. And there you go. That is everything I think I can say about Mighty Mac. They didn't do much in the series overall, but they're so quirky that I can't help but find them endearing. I highly doubt that we will ever see them again in any future version of the show, but it would be interesting to see how new talent would tackle them. This pick of the week has got nothing to do with Mighty Mac. Not many fan videos featuring them, unsurprisingly. Anyways, I'm shouting out How I Built My Gauge 1 Edward by Tank Engine John John. This is a tutorial video that covers how he built his own Gauge 1 replica of Edward, and interspliced between each section are story segments filmed with his own replicas. The story he wrote here for Edward is really sweet, and it's very well shot. There's a number of shots here that rival the actual show. I'm also in this. I play Topham. It's a well-made video, and quite informative. Go give it some love. I'd like to give a big thank you to Tom Denham for his help on this video. He ran the 80th anniversary podcast and provided me some additional information regarding Paul Larson and the Ron character. I highly recommend checking out the podcast. Each episode is dedicated to different aspects of Thomas's production. There's an episode featuring the Audrey family, one featuring past show writers, one with some of the voice actors, and so on. I've learned a lot from listening to them. It's free to listen to on Spotify. Links in the description below. At the time of recording this end section, I am back from the UK. It was a short trip. My wife and I were there for only about a week or so. We went up to York and caught a glimpse of Flying Scotsman there, and made our way down to the Mid-Hants Railway to see Sir Nigel Gresley. That was so awesome to see in person finally. That's 3 A4s down, 3 to go. Now that I'm back, I'm all inspired to work, and I have some plans of what's next for the channel. While I was gone, we got some pretty crazy reveals from the Britt Allcroft auction. If you've been keeping up with recent events, you'll know that the original scripts for most of the episodes of Season 5 have been revealed. I've only just finished reading all of those, and man, there is a lot to digest there. I'd love to do a video giving you my thoughts on those, so I think that will be next. If this is the first you're hearing about this, definitely go check out the stream by Valesbridge Productions where all the scripts were read aloud. It's a long stream, but worth your time. Link is in the description. The Season 15 retrospective is also still on the docket, and that'll come out after that. We're nearing the end of the year pretty quickly, and I want to have that out before the holidays come. I know you all have been anticipating that one. It's on the way. If you'd like to watch either of those videos a couple days before release, consider joining my Patreon, where controller tier patrons get early access to all videos. By the time I announce on YouTube that a new video is coming, you could have already watched it. Link is below in the description. Big thank you once again to all of my wonderful patrons and the support that you all shown me over the years. I wouldn't be here doing this without you all. That is all I have for you today, folks. Have a splendid day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!